Hey guys, welcome back to World of Tanks. So in this video I wanted to talk about how a lot of people kind of mislabel tanks, I guess. For example, they will say that this right here, T-28 prototype, will say, oh, that's not a tank destroyer, that's a heavy tank. Just because, you know, they think, oh, it has a turret, and it has a lot of armor, and it's slow. And I wanted to argue why that's not true, in most cases. So I've got a little bit of a list here. This one's first. I just wanted to talk about how the thing is about heavy tanks is usually they have a lot better side armor. And I mean, look at this, 50. This has 50 millimeters on the side. So you just can't really side scrape all that well. And you can't really like come around corners very well. And the thing about the T-28 prototype's armor is it's a lot harder to pin at distance. So I'm not saying it should be a sniper. I'm just saying I feel that the T-28 prototype is a mid to long range tank. And I mean, you can do close-up fighting too. I've done quite a bit. I mean, it's still good at fighting close up. The armor still can hold up. You just gotta be careful with that side armor. It's just so bad. And it's so long. There's so much of it to hit. So this is all just my opinion. Take it how you want, I guess. That's what I think about the T-28 prototype. It's still a tank destroyer. It's not necessarily a long-range sniper, but it can be. I mean, the Top Gun has, where is it? 0.38? Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that bad. Huh. So the accuracy isn't that good. But, I mean, I guess it could be worse. It could be, you know, like a Russian 122 or something. But, you know, it has a good aim time. And it has really good DPM. So, next on my list is a tank that I don't actually have. So, this is really, probably, because I don't own this tank, don't take me too seriously. Because I may be wrong about some things. Because all I know is what people have told me and what I've seen in battles and everything like that. So basically, people call this a heavy tank, just like the T-28 prototype. People call it a heavy tank when it's not. And granted, it's really slow. But, let's see, 9.89 specific power, yeah, pretty slow. But it does have a 40 km/h top speed, which it probably never gets to all that much. But when you're going downhill, it makes a difference. Because you might be slower than, I guess I'll say a KV-4. You might be slower than a KV-4, or about the same speed probably, on flat ground, but when you're going downhill, you're gonna pass him. You're definitely gonna beat him in that race. And also, it doesn't have the penetration of a heavy tank, and it has pretty decent accuracy. 0.36 isn't too bad. Well, okay, it's actually 0.38 base, but yeah, it doesn't have DPM. It doesn't have a lot of penetration. I mean, it used to be 170, so it used to be a lot worse, but and they buffed it whenever it was, a couple patches ago. So that's at least better than it used to be, but it's still not on the 220 level of heavy tanks, because on average the tier 8 heavy tanks are about 220 penetration. Tiger 2 is 225, the IS-3 is 225, the KV-4 is 230 or 227 or something like that. That shit, 220 is pretty much the average, I guess. And that's not really all. It's like, I mean, it has, let's see, the traverse speed is not that bad. And I mean, it's got gun depression where you can work ridge lines and stuff like that. And you can kind of be a mid-range, I don't want to say sniper, but kind of a mid-range, you know, just poke over a hill or a ridgeline or something, you know, only exposing your turret using that gun depression, stuff like that. Alright, so the next on the list would be yet another American tank. I think this is the last American tank. Yeah, this is the last American tank. And this one, not so much as the others. I've heard people say this is a lot like a medium tank, and usually those kind of claims are from a lot less experienced players, I think, because it's not a medium tank. It is a heavy tank. It is a heavy tank in pretty much every way possible that I can think of. The only thing is the penetration. 198. But, I mean, honestly, I feel like the reason for that is because Wargaming didn't have any other option of, as far as like putting a different gun on this tank in order to give it some more penetration. So I feel like that's probably why they did that. And so they made it good in other ways to compensate for the lack of penetration. And that's why it has such a good specific power, 13.21. That's pretty good for a heavy tank. That's why people, you know, they say, oh, that's not a heavy tank, it's medium, you know, whatever. It has gun depression, you know, you can, it's just flexible overall. And again, I don't own this tank, just take it with a grain of salt, but this is just my opinion. This is just what I think about this. Next on the list would be not necessarily people saying that a tank is a class that it's not, but it's a tank that, oh god, I do not want to look at this. This is so disgusting. I gotta put the upgraded shit on this. That's just, yeah, let's go historical. Let's give it the short 88. So, with this, it's not necessarily that people label it as a different class. It's more that people say because it sucks at everything, it's slow, the armor's not real good, besides the gun, that they think that that means that you need to be a sniper. And I really, really, really have to disagree with that. It does have good accuracy for a heavy tank, 0.34. It has really good DPM. And it has really, really good penetration. So yes, it does make a good sniper. But that doesn't mean that you always have to camp at the back of the map, be a sniper. That means that you have a heavy tank that just so happens to be good at long-range stuff if it's needed, if it's necessary. And again, I want to emphasize that it can be good at close range, you know, close quarter combat, especially with the new matchmaking. If this thing gets matched up with a bunch of tier 5s, man, this would be fun. It makes me want to buy it back, because this is one of my favorite tanks. One of my favorite heavy tanks, probably. Next on the list, we got the FCM-50T. Again, yes, I don't have this tank. Take it with a grain of salt. But, again, people say it's a medium. And I think in some cases, it actually is slightly true. I mean, look at the mobility of this thing. 18.44 specific power, 41 degrees a second traverse speed, 51 km/h top speed, 20 reverse. That 20 reverse, that's nice. I mean, that's good. And also, I may not own this tank, but there was a rental a while back for it, and I played it, and I felt that it's not a medium. Oh, and also it doesn't have good armor, so that's another thing that makes people say it's a medium tank, because the armor, you know, it's 120 millimeters sloped, but it's just not enough for tier 8. I mean, it sounds, actually it doesn't sound that good now that I think about it, but yeah, it's not great armor. But the thing was, when I had the rental, I felt like it wasn't a medium, but it was a heavy tank that got into the positions that you wanted to be in faster. And you know, it has gun depression too, 8 degrees. So again, you know, good at ridgeline stuff. The gun, you know, it's got, I think it has good DPM. Yeah, it's got good DPM, 2000. And it's kind of accurate. I'd say that's accurate for a heavy tank, 0.36. So really, it's another kind of mid-range heavy tank, like short to mid-range heavy tank, I would say. Sometimes long range. The Tiger 1 is more of a mid to long range heavy tank that can also do close range stuff if it needs to. This is a short to mid-range heavy tank, in my opinion, that can probably also do some long-range sniping as well, because .36 is not bad. Next on the list is the MX-CDC. Now this one I haven't heard very much, but I've heard people call this a light tank, just because the armor's terrible. 30 millimeters at most. I mean, come on, that you can pin this thing with HE on almost anything. It's crazy. And it's also hilariously fast. 35.29 specific power. I mean, it weighs 34 tons, and it has a 1200 horsepower engine. I mean, that's just insane. 57 km/h top speed. Same traverse speed as the FCM. Actually, I have to check on that now. 41.72 look familiar. Yeah, okay, same traverse speed. So I don't know if I mean, that's good. Yeah, 41, that's good. It's not a light tank. Light tanks don't have that much penetration at tier 8. 212 penetration. It's basically the same gun on the FCM 50T. Yeah, that's just ridiculous, because light tanks just don't have that kind of penetration at tier 8. I don't see how you could think this is a light tank. I mean, and it doesn't have camo while you're moving. I mean, it's actually not that bad now that I'm looking at it, but still. Light tanks have the same exact camo when they're moving as they do stationary. So, you can't, I mean, you can't seriously think this is a light tank. I mean, it has good spotting range too. Wow, 390. Wow, that's actually crazy. Can't believe that's the base spotting range. But yeah, sometimes it all comes down to the armament. Because, like, if the Super Pershing had, like, a 105, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that's definitely a heavy tank. But it has kind of a lighter gun. And then here with the CDC, you've got a 90 mil, which is kind of a medium tank gun. I mean, I can't even tell you how many medium tanks in this game have 90mm guns. But at tier 8, at least, the German one has a 90. I think that's the exception. So anyways, I just hate when people say, you know, because I go into detachments with my clan, and I bring out the T-28 prototype, because they like me to bring tank destroyers a lot of the time, because that's just it's my favorite class, and I do well in them. So I always prefer to bring tank destroyers and detachments. And every time I bring this, it seems like somebody has to say, oh, well, that's not a real tank destroyer, that's a heavy tank. And they always try to make me roll with the heavy tanks, which sometimes is fine. I mean, most of the time it can work out. We've had some good battles and detachments where I was acting like I was a heavy tank, and it worked out well. But I just don't like that kind of people. They think that Wargaming classified a tank wrong, and that resulted in this. This used to be considered a medium tank, and historically, the vehicle was developed as a light tank. However, as the model gradually received extra armaments, it was reclassified as a medium tank. So, anyways, the M7 was classified as a medium tank in the game. And whenever they updated light tanks and they added the tier 10s, they changed the M7 to a light tank, because it's in a line of, it's in a line of light tanks, that leads to other light tanks, so it makes sense. I think this case, maybe it is a light tank. I don't know. They have changed it since they started calling a light tank. They changed the gun selection or something. But back when it was considered a medium tank, when it had that label, I felt like it was a medium tank. I really did. I mean, I don't know. Fast medium tank with no armor doesn't mean light tank. That's basically what you should take away from this video, I guess. Also, I forgot to mention, the T-28 prototype has the worst turret traverse speed. Like, where's it at? 18.94. And not to mention the fact, see this right here, turret traverse angles, 143. That means it can only turn its turret 143 degrees to each side, so it's about like this, where the gun will be pointing up in that direction. That's as far back as it'll go. So, not necessarily that, but the fact that it has a slow turret traverse really makes it kind of awkward in close encounters sometimes. And another thing I forgot to mention was I kind of feel like there can be one exception to the whole mislabeling tanks thing, because the T-25-2 plays a lot like a medium tank sometimes. So I will say this is partially a medium tank, if that's possible, because I mean, for one thing, it has terrible penetration for a tank destroyer. For a medium tank, it's good, but for a tank destroyer, not so much. 170 on the Top Gun, and the DPM is average. And, you know, normally tank destroyers have good DPM, at least in my opinion. But it has a good aim time, which is kind of a medium tank thing, isn't it? So, you know, it's, I don't know, it's hard to say sometimes. But the thing is about this, it's just like the T-28 prototype. It has a really slow turret traverse. Like, it's actually pretty much the same as the T-28 prototype. So, close range stuff is just awkward. And, you know, when you get circled by a light tank, forget about it, you're dead. But, you know, I've used this as a medium tank, and I want to say I aced it on Himmelsdorf, playing it as a medium tank. But there were still times where it felt like a tank destroyer. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe for more.